Hello, hello everyone. Hope you are doing well. Happy Tuesday. Happy Learning Live. Please do drop a comment in the comment section. Well, at least it's below me here on my screen. I'm not sure quite where it is going to be on your screen. Please do drop a hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I see a couple of eyeballs tuning in. And I know more will come along as we build here. So we are here for another Learning Live. I know I took last week off, so it feels like a little bit since I have been on here. But don't worry, I have a fun evening planned for you tonight. And we are already starting to plan for the rest of the Learning Lives going forward in May. It is going to be a fun month. I just wish Mother Nature would catch up with things. Hello, Sheri. How are you doing? Again, if you're just tuning in, please drop a hello in the comments below so I can know you can hear me, know you can see this face, and more importantly, these hands when I switch over to the overhead camera. So the title for tonight, I don't even actually remember what the title for tonight was, but it is about using stamps and stencils on colored paper. So often we look at our stamps and our stencils, especially the ones that are meant for coloring in, and think about using them on white paper so that the color can really shine through and you can have fun with your different coloring techniques. Well, you can use them on colored paper as well. And even as I was prepping, Matt's like, but really? Can you color on colored paper? What, doesn't it have to be a special kind of paper? Well, we will talk about that and give you some tips and tricks so that you are successful when you want to go and color on your colored paper. So tonight we're going to be playing with Copic markers. We are going to be playing with inks and stencils. And I even dug out, have an idea, haven't tried it yet though, dug out my white ink. So all in all tonight we are going to do 3 different techniques. Hello Lynn, hello Diane, thank you for joining in tonight. Hello Joan and Pat. Lynn says you can hear me okay, so that is always good. I had to shoo Matt out of the room because he got a phone call just as we were going live.
What is this, the romper room?
It is the romper room. So he's back now. Peanut Gallery is back. Now he is working on stuff in the other room, but you know he will chime in here. Anyways, put the Peanut Gallery back in the other room. We will focus here tonight, and I'm going to switch to my overhead camera just to show you exactly what I'm going to be working with tonight. All right. So to start things off, I am using a stamp, die, and stencil trio from Christina Werner and Concord and Ninth. I'm going to hold this up. This is kind of the centerpiece, gives you an idea of what we're using. This is the spring stem stamps. Yes, you have to say that carefully or I will be spitting all over the place. But this is a beautiful little floral stamp. And I will tell you, more and more over the last couple of weeks, we've had lots of requests for floral stamps. Whether it's because we are desperately looking for spring, whether it's because Mother's Day is coming, I'm not really sure. There has been a real call for floral stamps though, so I've got some more on their way to us, but I thought tonight would be a great one to work with. Lynn says says to you, the Peanut Gallery, she is so excited for this video. So they're talking to you in the Peanut Gallery over there. Oh, Matt's trying to do multitasking. Anyways, I'm going to carry on. I can see the comments, so it's all good. Anyways, with this set, so this comes as a bundle. So there is the stamp with all kinds of really fun sentiments. Some are a little bit more serious, like thinking of you or just because. And then you've got sending sunshine and sending smiles. All right, one second here. I just got a little pop-up here on my screen. And I need to see if I can figure out how to...
I don't see anything on the feed.
No, it's talking about my my storage. Cancel. Sorry guys, sorry for the interruption here. I just want to make sure. You know what? If it's streaming, I think we are good to go. It just may mean that it doesn't save to my my cloud. But anyways, we will keep going. If I happen to lose you, don't fret. I will start it all up again. It's all good. So there is the stamp set. There is the die set. And then there is a one-layer stencil. A one-layer stencil that goes with this. We'll be using it tonight, and I'll show you some different tips. You know, first and foremost, I wrote the word front on here to make sure, yes, there are the etched words in here, but my old eyes have trouble seeing it sometimes. So that nice big word front helps me remember what I'm seeing and what I am using. Hello, Donna. Hello, Patricia. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. So that is the main stamp, die, and stencil set that I will be using tonight. I already have the stamp loaded up on a nice big block. I will be transferring it to the Misty for the last card. But we'll get there. We'll get there. The other things I have here on my table, so I pulled out a selection of Concord and Night colored cardstock for use tonight. Really feeling the spring, so I've got Pink Lemonade, which on camera looks a little bit more coral than it actually is in real life. It does have a pink tone to it, but then it paired really nicely with the watermelon. I have also pulled out Mushroom as a dark color and Sprout as kind of a background layer. So I've actually already got my paper cut. We probably won't need to dig into this at all, but I just wanted to show you those colors and have those ready. I've got some printer paper for when I do my Copics. I've got the coordinating ink cubes, so Pink Lemonade and Watermelon. And then I also have just an assortment of tools. So I've got a couple of Copic markers that I tested out ahead of time and will go well with the watermelon paper, and my two blending brushes. My white, as I told you, so with the white, I'm going to be using a foam blender. That one I'm not sure if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a try and see what it's like. So before we even get started, when you're using a stamp, obviously you need an ink to stamp with. And not all inks are created equal for every purpose. Let me just zoom in super close here. So we have our Memento ink here, and we have our VersaFine ink over here. These are both black inks. They are actually both waterproof, I believe. Though I know that the VersaFine is what I tend to use for watercoloring. The Memento I've got because that is my go-to ink for Copic coloring. So when we do our Copic technique, I have already actually pre-stamped the Memento on my card so that it's ready to go. The VersaFine we are going to use for our stenciling and using the other inks. So you really just have to be cognizant of what you are using to color with. So whether you're using your Copics or your inks, or if you were watercoloring, and just make sure you are using the best ink that matches your coloring medium. I was playing around a little bit, and I was actually a little bit surprised that this happened. This is Memento ink, but then I stenciled over it. And for some reason, and this is not common when I have done stenciling in the past, but for whatever reason, the black ink kind of sat on the surface of the paper, and when I did my stenciling, it turned into a black smeary mess. Now, I have tested a few other versions before, so I know what I'm doing tonight, but just be careful. And that's why it's always good, especially when you're doing these techniques, to do it on separate paper, not on your finished card. So if something like this does happen, you can go ahead and stop what you are doing and redo it in a different ink. So again, you have to be very aware of what you're using and what you're trying to achieve. And black smeary mess is not what we were trying to achieve. Sometimes that happens though. So, like I said, I have chosen the Memento to use with my Copic markers, and I did pre-stamp it just so that it had a minute or two to set into the ink fibers, into the paper fibers. So this is the watermelon cardstock, and I just have stamped the floral image right in the center. I always find it easier to color on a whole piece and then cut it out afterwards. But you could die cut it ahead of time if you really wanted to. Now, going back to Matt's question, he said, well, can you really color on colored cardstock? Is it going to accept the Copic ink? Well, doesn't it have to have a special coating? The short answer is yes and no. So if you are doing heavy detailed blending with 3-4 colors, 3-4 shades of each color, if you're doing your whole image in a lot of heavy duty Copic blending, then yes, that's where I would say stop and go back to your white paper. But for what we're going to do tonight is we're just going to do some really subtle, shading. And actually, I'm going to zoom back in just for a second. You can see it here on the leaf. I've just done some really subtle shading, some little bit of blending. And for that purpose, using this, using colored cardstock is okay. You may remember seeing some samples from Ashley. She's done some beautiful Lawn Fawn and Spellbinder samples for us, where she's taken paper and Copic colored on it to give the shading as opposed to ink blending. So it is totally acceptable as long as you know the limitations. So the 3 colors I'm using tonight, and really for tonight's purposes, all you really need to know is that I have a dark, a medium, and a light. And I probably won't even be using the dark that much. But I've got them in the R family, which is for reds. And really all you need to know is that I've got a light, medium, and dark. The specific colors will obviously matter depending on what color of paper you are using. Now, whenever you are coloring with Copic markers, it is always important to have something absorbent underneath what you're coloring, because that will draw your Copic ink through the paper and give you the saturation that you need. So I've just got a piece of copy paper here that I have folded and put underneath my paper as my work surface. Working on a glass surface, straight on, not always the best idea. You want to have something absorbent underneath. Working on your dining room table with Copic markers, especially your antique dining room table, definitely not a good idea, because when you are Copic coloring, having the color go through means you're doing it right. But you do not want to leave marks on that antique dining room table. So without further ado, I'm going to start just with the flowers, and I'm not coloring the whole thing. I'm really just going to do the edges and towards the center in order to give them some unique shading, give it a little bit more depth and dimension, and allow it to pop off the background. Now, I did I put it back in here? I did have a scratch piece of paper, and it has now gone AWOL, so I'm just going to continue to color on here. I was going to do a little swatch like I had done, but now I've completely lost it. So I'm going to actually start with the medium, with the flower, because I'm not sure. The dark may be a little bit too dark, and I'm going to save that for when I'm doing the leaves. So with the flowers, I'm simply going to take the brush tip of my Copic marker, and any alcohol marker will work for this technique in order to get the blending. So I'm just going to start on the edges, and I'm going to just flick upwards into the petals. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. So you can see I'm just flicking up, and I always go in a single direction. I don't scribble back and forth, and that's going to keep my ink nice and contained in my lines. And I tend to, instead of trying to rotate my hand, I will rotate my image so that I keep going in that same flicking motion along the sides there. And flowers are always, I shouldn't say always, but most times flower stamps are nice and detailed, so you can really follow the detail that's given to you. Oops, I went a little bit out of the line, but we won't tell. You can follow the detail. So we've got all these little wiggly lines in the petals that you could actually build in even more color along those lines, because that's the artist's way of telling you there is dimension there. So in reality, I really could leave it just with that medium color, but I want to soften some of the edges, so I'm just going to take this lighter color and just go over it. It's going to look really wet right now, and the important thing to remember about Copic coloring is that you do want to let it dry, because the colors are going to be seeping into the fibers of the paper, and it will change over time. So if you don't like the way something looks when you're coloring it, go get a cup of tea, go get a glass of water, go for a little walk, let it kind of settle, and often when you come back, you will find that it looks so much better. The other thing you can do is that Copic inks do layer, so I can go back in and I could go right along these edges, because I'm afraid that this guy, if I were to go in with this darker color, it's going to be too dark. Oh, make sure I put the right cap back on the right one. But if I just go in with that same color and add a tone to it, it will help as well. And this is not at all meant to be a Copic lesson. That would be a whole learning live in and of itself. But I could, as Matt just said, a whole series of learning lives for sure. But I just wanted to give those tips to you. So there's one flower. I'm going to now go and do the larger flower. And again, I'm just kind of flicking on the edges of these petals. And you can see how it just helps to make this pop off that page. You do not have to be an expert colorist. You do not even need to be a super good one. You can just have a couple of markers and be able to pull this out. So I'm just going as close to the edge, but I'm really just doing this very loosey-goosey. And there we go. So let's go to the lighter color, finish that one off. Just kind of smoothing it out, and I know that this is going to look a little weird as it dries, but it's going to come together. All right, so there's number 2, and let me go and do number 3. So maybe jot in the comments, have you ever used Copics before? Have you used Olos or any of the new alcohol markers? Janet is asking, what paper am I coloring on? So this is the Concord and Ninth watermelon cardstock. It is not Copic paper. And as I was just saying, when you're doing just this really light, subtle blending, you don't need Copic paper. You can really get away with using the colored paper that is in your stash. Now, if your paper is, for lack of a better term, if it feels like construction paper and it really soaks things in, you're not going to get a blend. But I'm working quickly enough, and this is not porous at enough of a level that I can work quickly and just do some subtle blending. Again, this is not meant to do like still life, realistic coloring. This is just meant to be shading and building in some depth and dimension. So hopefully that answers your question, Janet. Man, I could just sit and color all day. I really do get lost in coloring with my markers. And for me, this is a real de-stressor. Maybe not for you guys, but we all have our thing. We all have our thing that helps us relax. And I need to remember this and bring these out more often. And I'm just rotating. I probably could just rotate the whole thing instead of lifting up the cardstock. But just some light coloring there. And again, as it dries, it's going to really even out. But look how nice and dimensional this now looks. Let me come out just a little bit. Even though it is very much tone on tone. I do need to do these two little buds as well. Just a little bit here at the bottom. Pull up the color, follow the lines. Use the hints that the artist has given us. And then let's go in and do the leaves. So with this one, I think I will bring in this darker color. I'll zoom back in, maybe. There we go. Come over here. And with the leaves, I do want to follow these lines. And you know what? If you happen to do it wrong, like I just did, I had done it on the wrong side of the vein. No one's going to know. Trust me. And if they do, well, then they can color it themselves. Donna says she dabbles with the alcohol markers, some Copics, some Tri-Blends, some Olos. There are lots of great ones out there. And as long as they're all alcohol-based, they can work together. So I'm just softening out those lines. And then let's go in with that lightest color. And just see if I can fill in some of the gaps. Not my neatest work for sure, but giving you the idea. And again, I'm going to add just a little bit more darkness here on that side where the leaves overlap. So there we go. And that's really all that you need to do. You could go in now, see if I've got one in my little drawer here, with a white gel pen. I'm just going to add, just some little white accents. And see how that just brings that to life. So nice. Turn it so I don't drag my hand through the ink. And this last little guy over here. So with your Copic markers, with your Olos, your Tri-Blends, whatever it is you're using, you can color very subtly on colored paper and have it still work out really well. I'm actually really happy with how those turned out. I'm going to let that dry because sometimes that white, oh no, it's actually not too bad. Sometimes that white sits on the surface. To finish off this card, I'm simply going to take a die. So I've got these stitch decal edges from a little while ago. I think if I do this, that's going to frame it really nicely. And then I'm gonna mount it on a piece of that Sprout cardstock. Just to give it a little bit more brightness. And when it comes to Copics, of course, do not think that you're going to get the true colors. Whoops, sorry, I just jugged. Local recording has stopped, but that's okay. I think you guys can still see me. Matt says he can still see me. That's good. It's just not recording to my hard drive, which I just need to remember to go in and clean that out. Oh, darn it. Darn it. So, lesson learned. I was die cutting earlier with stamped images, and the ink got on my plate. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I now have ghosty images of my other stamps. So lesson learned, you should always clean your plates if you've been die cutting stamped images, or add that piece of copy paper on the top. But for tonight's purposes, we're going to just pretend that that was not the case. I wonder if my sand eraser will help get rid of some of that. I think I'm making a bigger mess. So I'm going to stop. Lesson learned. But if that had all worked out well, I was going to mount that onto this sprout piece. Let me come back out. And just add a little sentiment. And that would be my finished card. I like how that sprout works with that watermelon paper and just gives you that little bit of brightness to take that even to the next level. So that is one way, just one way that you can use your stamps on colored cardstock and still not have it be flat or single dimensional. This really gives it some extra texture, and other than the outline, I didn't have to do any die cutting. It was really just working on the paper that I was working with. All right, step number two. Step number two, I'm going to keep that copy paper handy so that if I go to do more die cutting, I won't get that same ghosting. So next up is stenciling, and I'm going to use the pink lemonade this time. And yes, I could do exactly the same thing where I stamp it once and then stencil it, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm actually going to use this big stamp and do some random stamping. So I'm going to cover, and I might even just be able to kind of go around the horn. We're going to have to see. This time, because I know that the memento did not work well when I was stenciling, I am going to switch to that VersaFine ink, and we will stamp from there. So when you have even a large stamp like this, don't feel like you need to only stamp it once. It can be a focal point, but it does not have to be. So I'm going to start up here in this corner. Just go like that. And I'm going to ink it up again. Let me rotate my paper. And this time, I'm going to stamp in this corner. Okay, and rotate again. I guess I could have rotated the whole thing, but I just rotated the pink. And you know what? Even that, just that looks pretty. You could put your sentiment in there. So play around with your placement. Play around with putting them in different positions. A focal point stamp set does not have to be strictly a focal point. So this one's going to go up here. And I've got one little opening. And look at that. I should be able to fit that in there nice and tight. All right. Bloop, bloop, bloop. So this is that VersaFine ink. It is a pigment ink, but it dries super fast. You can use this for watercoloring. Yeah, I'm just making sure I got all the details off the back of the package there. Okay, excuse my head if it comes on camera. Or would it work better this way? No, I don't really want the stem kind of right down the center, but I think I should be able to make that work. All right. So look at that, right in and of itself, that looks pretty spectacular, but we're going to take it to the next level. Let's just let it dry. Let it dry. And I am going to clean this off just using a baby wipe, because I will be moving it to the Misty, so I don't really want to get black all over my hands if I can help it. And it's best if we do it now so it can kind of air dry before I have to move it. All right, how are we for time? 8:30. All right, so that's going off to the side. Baby wipe for later. And this is where I'm grabbing my grip mat just so that everything does not move. Yes, Donna, I think that turned out really fantastic too. So if nothing else, if we were just to take this and leave it on its own, it really just creates a really pretty look. Okay, I think I should be okay. And now I'm going to grab out that stencil. So this is not your typical layering stencil in that the flowers do not line up with where the stamp goes. But what I did find out, and this is where we're going to have to manipulate things just a little bit, but as long as you stay at the top, then it should be pretty easy to line things up. So I know that this is the top of that flower. Let's just scooch in. So if this is the top of the flower, if we were to stamp it by ourselves, finding that alignment isn't going to be too difficult. So I'm going to start by just doing all of the large flowers. And I do have those two colors of ink. So I've got the watermelon and the pink lemonade. I'm going to start with the pink lemonade. Just get a little bit of color. And that's going to go in the middle, and I'm working my way out. So I don't want it heavy duty. But when I lift to reveal, you really can see that there is ink on there. Now, if you want it a little bit darker, you can go in a little bit more aggressively. And again, see how that flower is popping. So you could just do pink lemonade across all of the flowers. But I also want to do some watermelon. So I'll come back to pink lemonade on the next one. I'm going to get my watermelon brush. This time I'm just going around the outer edges. So just like we did with the petals with the Copics, I'm just going to the edges. Be careful you don't go off the edge of your stencil. And look at that. That looks spectacular. Let's go to the next one, which is up here. And I should probably be diligent about cleaning in between each one, but I wasn't. So we're just going to wing it. And this is just a little spot, so let's come back. Let's do that. This is usually where I put my ink so I don't have to hold them and have 3 pairs of hands. So again, just a light layer of the pink lemonade and a slightly darker layer of the watermelon. And voila. And here's another big one here, but this one I know it's upside down, so I'm going to turn my stencil upside down. My light ink first. Fill in that whole flower, or at least the center of it. And then go back with the darker one just along the edges. And I am tapping off a little bit on the side of the stencil here, because otherwise I might get too much dark where I don't want it. And then I can come back and kind of scoop up that excess. It's not going to go to waste. All right. Whoop. Look at that. That looks just so much fun. So much fun. And you can see we're just adding tone on tone. It does have a very monochromatic look, but it gives you some vibrance. right, this last large one, my light ink. Fill that in and then go in with the darker one just along the edges. Just along the edges. Keep that center bright if you can. And voila. So, I could make a choice and leave it just like this. Or I could go in with the next set of flowers and then do the last set of flowers. I think for the interest of time, if for no other reason, but I do really like this kind of spotlight look, I'm going to leave that just as the only flower that I'm going to do. But, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it. You've got the idea now that you can use those stencils on that color paper. It's gonna say maybe I go in and do the leaves, though there are. Well, let's see if we can do it quickly. I'm only gonna do the light color again for the interest of time, but let's see what that looks like. Where's my light brush? And maybe I will only do kind of the bottoms of that leaf. 1, 2, and this one kind of not even gonna see it very well because it's way over here. And then let's go to this one, and we're just rotating around the horn as they speak. Just on the bottom. Just on the bottom. And over here, whoops, to that big one. So we're creating our own depth just on those couple of ones. There's no leaves over here. Over here, we're coming back to our split one. Just a little bit, just a little bit. And I think that might do us, because a lot of the other leaves got covered up. These are the little buds. So again, maybe I'll do, and you can see how you can choose. Oh, those ones actually go together. Look at that. You can choose how much or how little extra ink you add. Kind of makes me think of cherry blossoms. There it is. And last but not least, this little guy over here. There we go. So just little layers, and once again, you could go back in with that white gel pen. You could go in just with the dark and do some heavier, darker areas, and really just play around. So that is another way. And honestly, I might just take a sentiment, put it right across the center or just down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And you don't have to do much more than that at all. So that is option number 2. That is using your stencils and your coordinating ink, and that's all I did is I picked the color of papers that I was using and picked the inks to match, and that created this really beautiful kind of spotlighted background. So that is option number 2. Now we're going to go into option number 3. I will come back to this, but let me get it out of the way for the time being. I'm going to give my stencil a quick clean because I am going to be changing colors. So to clean my stencils, I have this microfiber cloth. I have this little bottle here. It's not water, it is rubbing alcohol. And I just give it a little spritz. I think we've done some stenciling in April, so you've seen me use that before, and Matt's going to come in here and say, man, it stinks in here. Try not to use too much and try not to breathe it too deeply. But the rubbing alcohol helps your stencil get clean, but dries almost instantly. If you were to try to go in with water or a baby wipe or something like that, it may take longer to dry, and especially if you're stenciling and you're changing colors, you don't want your ink to run. Okay, so here's where we're going to get a little adventurous. I've got dark cardstock. This was, what color was this? This was mushroom? Yes, mushroom from Concord and 9th. And this one we're going to do, I'm going to use the Misty because I'm going to stencil this with white ink. But I want to do it in the Misty so that once I've done the white, if the ink starts to fade away because the white will cover it up, we can go back in and stamp a second time. So I cleaned my stamp. Where did I put it? It's over here. I'm going to do this twice. So almost very similar to what I did over here, though this was kind of random. This one I'm going to intentionally put right here in the corner, and when I stamp it a second time, I'm going to rotate the paper and it will stamp in the opposite corner. So if I do this, or you know what? Maybe just one single corner might actually look really fancy. So let's try once. Oh, and look, there was still a little bit of water on the stamp, but no worries. So I'm using that VersaFine black ink again. Inking it up. Closing it over. So where on this one I said use your focal point stamp as an all over stamp, this one I'm using it as a focal point but not in the center. So move your stamps around. Don't be afraid to put it in different positions. And yeah, if I really wanted to, I'm having trouble with that magnet. I could flip that around and stamp it a second time, but I kind of like the idea of it only being once. So I'm going to put this off to the side because we're going to come back to this. I'm 99% sure. I'm going to bring this back up here, put this into place, and I get out my white ink, and this time, like I said, I am using a blending foam. For the white, with it being pigment, I find using bristle brushes, like the ones I've been using here, the pigment makes the bristles really gummy and it sticks together and they don't work very well. So the foam works a lot better, in my opinion, in my experience, when you're using a pigment ink. So I'm going to go here, find my space, and hold that down. Now, with the foam blender, I am not going to do circles. I am going to dab. Again, my personal preference, I find I get better coverage and I don't worry as much about bending the circles because sometimes that foam blender catches on all those little points and it doesn't always work very well. Now, a few weeks ago, I did a learning live where we used craft paper. We put the white down and then we went back over it with the color. You absolutely could do that same technique here as we did there. But man, look at that. Still not close enough. It looks fantastic. So excited. Let's go back out. I'm going to go to the next flower, which is this one over here. And place it down. And again, I'm just dabbing, dabbity, dabbity, dabbity. Not quite sure what that word was, but just dabbing it along. And then I'm going to come back to my last flower. Find the right orientation. And it should have been, oh, there it is. I just turned it too far. Okay. Oh, it slid just a little bit. There we go. Okay. And that looking really, really awesome. Just a little bit of white ink goes a long way. Actually, should I go in? No, I'm gonna just let the open blooms be the focal point. I could go in and do the little buds and do the leaves, but I think I'm gonna leave them. I have an idea. But like I said, when you use the white, it does tend to cover up all of that detail. So that's why having it in your MISTI goes a long way, because now I can put this back in. The stamp hasn't moved. I can put my paper back in. Whoops. And put my paper back in. As long as I make sure it's snugged there in the corner. Find my ink. And go back over it. Look at that. You know, sometimes you do something and you're not sure if it's going to work, and it works out even better than you thought. So there, I mean, this would make a very heartfelt and beautiful sympathy card. And I intentionally went with this dark gray because I really wanted to show that contrast. But you could have used navy blue or a deep teal, a deep, deep purple. But look at how beautiful. And honestly, the finishing touch was that second round of stamping to bring the detail back to life. Now, your pigment ink still is a little bit wet, so I would be careful about getting too touchy-feely with this. You may want to leave it overnight to dry, or before you re-ink it, heat set it just so that you take all the tackiness away from that pigment ink, because it is sitting on the top of the paper. It's sitting on top and it'll take a little while to set. But then here's what you can do as a finishing touch. So you remember I said I did not want to go into the leaves or that bud to get the extra detail. Well, that's where my white gel pen is going to come into play. So I can go in here now and just along those lines, add that little bit of extra white to give it some definition. Make it look like it fits without taking away from what we've done with the florals. And the same thing with the leaves. So I'm just going to do some subtle does not need to cover every single tick mark, every single line, but it's just going to add that little bit of extra dimension. And it really just seems to finish it off. So let's come back out. What I can then do, and now one thing I did not even remotely get into tonight was heat embossing. Heat embossing on colored cardstock is stunning. So you could go in with your sentiment and heat emboss it in white. I'm simply going to I'm simply going to stamp it and call it done. I think that one will fit. Sort of straight. It'll be straight when I stamp it. There, or up here. Kind of like it up. Just me, but I kind of like it up. Sorry if my head's going to get on the camera. Oh, so far so good. Really subtle. And just as an added, I'm going to try not to drag my hand. Just adding some little white hearts, maybe some little white dots. And with the white gel pen, don't just stab at it like I just did. You actually want to kind of draw the little circle in. So maybe just one more heart over here. And a couple of little dots. So there you go. That's 3 different ways that you can use your stamps, use your, well, two ways for the stencil, but use those combo sets. Use these, where did my other one go? Oh, it's over here. My ghosty one. Use these bundles in different ways, in a way that maybe it wasn't necessarily originally envisioned. I'm going to show you one other sample that I made ahead of time. We didn't talk a lot about the dies tonight, and honestly, we didn't use them on any of the cards, but those coordinating dies are there. So what I did with this one is I just used the die to cut out the silhouettes of the flowers to make the background, and then this was another one that I had stenciled and just popped on top as the focal point. So as much as we're building silhouettes and using the stamps in different ways and the stencil, you can also use the dies in a different way as well. So, who has a stamp in their stash? Actually, let me come back. Just let you take a look at that for a moment. I will post some pictures later in the week. Who has a stamp in their stash that may be similar to this floral set? Let me hold it up here. That you've only ever used one way. You've only ever used it on white paper. You've only ever used it as a focal point. Start thinking about that stamp, or 2 stamps, or 3 stamps. Dig it out. Dig out your favorite color of colored cardstock and play with it. That's your homework. That's what I want you to do between now and next week. Take what you've learned tonight and just look at things differently and try something different. What have you got to lose? It is a lot of fun, and you'd really be amazed at how just a little bit of color on that colored cardstock can make a huge difference. So thank you very much for joining me tonight. If you do get that homework done, make sure you post, let me get this right, up here, post in our Papercrafts Inner Circle group. We love to see what you make. I would love it. I absolutely love it when I see people take something that I've done and put their own spin on it. And I look forward to seeing what you are creating. Sorry about that. My voice is running out. Have a great night, everyone.